This is a tutorial of the portrait of surfer Aloha that I shot in Hikkaduwa in Sri Lanka. Now this portrait was taken using a couple of techniques. Firstly, I used fill flash, and it was a fairly bright day and there was a fair bit of sunshine around, and Aloha was actually backlit, heavily backlit, so I really struggled with the flash to get enough power in. So that's one of the issues that I find with speed lights, that they are very slow. I needed to work at full power to get enough light to overpower the sun in this image. The second setup that I used was I just shot with ambient light, and I basically exposed for the skin tone and let the background blow out, and then in Lightroom I brought back the detail in the image. Now the equipment that I used for this shoot was basically, I had my Canon 600 speed light, and then that comes also with a transmitter. So what you've got is you've got a master system that sits on top of the camera, and then you've got your speed light which works as the slave. So basically the two are synced together, so you can see the green lights there that shows that they're actually linked. And then the beauty of this setup is I can control the power of my flash from my camera, so I don't need to be moving back to the light and forth, which gives you a lot of freedom when you're shooting portraits like this on the go. So basically I set the channel, so you can see here it's set to channel A, and I can control the power output of the flash. So you can see that you can go from full power down to, I think, 1/128th of a second when the actual speed light is set to manual mode. So it's a fairly simple process to get the two lights connected, and I think it's slightly different depending on the system that you have. So it's just a matter of sitting down with the manual and working through and just experimenting. I think when I got it out, like, it maybe took me 20 minutes or so to wrap my head around it, and then once you know how to use it, it's very straightforward to operate the system from the top of the camera. It's quite easy, and it's like that, having the luxury of being able to control the flash settings from the camera is awesome. So you can see here that I've got the channel A selected. I can hit this button here, will select the group that I want. It'll light that up, and then I can rotate the dial up or down to get my power settings correct, which makes life really easy. If that's not and probably, like, if you're just starting out with fill flash, this might be it can be a bit complicated and overwhelming when you're just trying to get your head around flash. So I think if you're just starting out, I would recommend a really simple setup, and something like these little Yongnuo triggers are perfect. One goes on the camera, one goes on the flash, and basically what it does is it just fires the flash. So you need to manually walk over to the flash and adjust the power settings up and down to suit the style of shot that you're doing. The other essential item, I believe, in this kind of shoot is a warming filter. Now, this is a little set of filters that I have, and basically they come in all different colors, but the ones that I am using today are color temperature orange filters. Now, if you buy a little set of filters like this, you'll see that you get all different densities of color temperature orange, and so basically you can get a quarter, a half, and full, and that's going to affect how warm the light that you produce on your shot is going to be. And the reason this is important is the fact that flash is very neutral in color, so it adds a very cold neutral light to your image. Now, I was shooting late in the afternoon, and the ambient light, as the sun is getting lower in the sky, it was still like late afternoon, it was about 5 o'clock, but what happens is the temperature of the ambient light starts to warm up, and if you just use a flash without a filter, the light on your subject is going to look different to the lighting in the background. It's going to be a bit cool. So what I like to do is use a half CT O gel, and that's a half color temperature orange. So that's it there, and basically what happens is it just goes on to my onto the end of the flash, and the flash that I was using in this shoot is my new favorite. I get onto favorites, but really good for traveling and puts out a really nice soft light, and that's the Gary Fong light sphere. So beautiful for darker skin tones, for any skin tone really. It just puts out a really soft, natural looking light, and also very easy to control, and particularly if you may be working on a light stand, or you've got an assistant working with you who's not particularly experienced, where the light goes is going to be crucial. So I think this type of light modifier puts out this nice even spread of light, and if you move the light slightly, it's not going to make a huge difference. So I think it's a really good, safe light to work with. So my thought process in creating this shot is, as soon as I get to the beach, and even before I have my model in position, I want to find my background. So like I've scoped out, I always knew, had the idea in my head that I wanted Aloha to be on the beach, and I wanted some of the like epic looking sky around him to be a backdrop, and I also really liked the roughness of the ocean. So basically I sent him into the water because I didn't want to do a portrait of him completely dry. I wanted to have a shot of him emerging from the water, and while he was in having a swim and getting wet, I was going to, I did some test shots to determine how I want my background. So this first image is f/18 at 1/200th of a second. That's at ISO 100, and I'm shooting on the 24-105 at a focal length of 105. And so this, to me, looked a little bit heavy. So this is just ambient light. So then I just had some time to experiment. So I tried f/16. Again, I thought that looked a bit heavy, and I settled on f/11. I think that the water looked good. There was still detail in the sky, and so f/11 at 1/200th of a second was going to be the exposure for the entire shot. The next step is to add the flash. So I bring a lower in, and I set up my flash. Nothing changes in the way that I expose my image. My aperture stays at f/11, and my shutter speed stays at 1/200th of a second. And now I bring in the flash, and the first test shot is at half power. And I try that out, and I think overall it's looking a little bit too heavy for me. I think his skin tone looks too heavy, and I'm not getting enough detail in the light. So all I need to do is look down, and from my camera, using the master that I have set on the top of my camera, I can actually bump up the power of the flash, and I can now bump it up to full power. And there's my second test shot at full power, and I'm pretty happy with how that's looking. There's good detail in his hair, and I think the shot overall looks good. Now, I am a lot closer than I wanted to shoot the actual shot, because I really want to see what's going on with him. It doesn't matter about the background in this initial test phase. I just want to see how the light looks on Aloha. So I purposely was a lot closer so that I could get a tight headshot, and then it's a lot easier for me to see exactly what my lighting is doing. And I've been caught out where I actually just frame up the shot and we'll shoot where the way I need it to be, and I have a tiny frame in a big image, and then I'm trying to zoom into the back of the screen to see how the lighting looks. I think this way is a much better way of doing it. Zoom in first, get your lighting first, and then back off. So that's exactly what I did. I did my test shot, and then I backed up and got into the position that I needed to be in. So let's have a look. Here's the shot without flash. F11, 1/200th of a second, ISO 100. Then with the flash turned on, basically I'm adding light to the shot. F11, 1/200th of a second, ISO 100, with the Gary Fong diffuser there on the flash, and the flash power, because this was a bright sunny day and Aloha was so backlit, I needed full power to get enough light in the shot. Now, there is issues with shooting like this. It is super slow. So I recommend that if you're doing a shoot like this, make sure that at the very least you start with fresh, brand new batteries, because if you're shooting at full power with a speed light, the recycle time is quite slow. And if you think that having to wait several seconds, sometimes up to 5-10 seconds between frames isn't a long time, then try doing that when you've got a model in front of you waiting and wondering like what you're doing. It's a long time. The other workaround, that if you are trying to overpower the sun like this with flash, is if you have two speed lights, is to combine them and have them both. So if you've got two speed lights and you wanting to shoot with one at half power, then two speed lights would be two at half power. I did math there. And basically what that does is, if you're shooting at half power, the recycle time is much quicker, and you're going to find that a lot easier to manage your shoots. If this is something you think you're going to be doing a lot of, like working outside, overpowering full sun in bright conditions and using fill flash, you may want to investigate investing in some portable lighting, which is a bit more powerful than a speed light. So something like Photo, which is at the upper end. I use Lanka, which is somewhere around the middle, still pro gear, and basically one of those heads is roughly 4 to 6 times more powerful than a single speed light. Recycle time is a lot faster, so if you're doing a lot of shoots and you want to have the extra grunt, then I check out something like a battery operated light, maybe hire one, and see how you go, and you'll notice a difference. You'll also notice a difference in the color temperature of the light and the consistency of the light as well. But the speed lights, for situations like this, if you're moving around, you want to set up quickly, they do the job just as well. So for the actual shoot, it's pretty straightforward. So once I've got myself into position, I've framed up my shot. In this case, because I am on the beach, I didn't want to bring a tripod, so I get myself into a position where I know I'm not going to move around a lot, and I kind of keep my camera really steady. And basically now it's all about getting my model, Aloha, in the right position and looking good for the shot that I want. So basically, I'm shooting now at full length, and having him smaller in the frame. And obviously, then once I've got my shot, I'm going to ask the assistant to move out of the shot, and then I can merge the two images together, with one without the assistant, one with, and create the plate that's a clean plate. My main concern here was that I didn't like the way Aloha was standing. I wanted him to kind of be like hanging out and looking cool. So I've come in to show him exactly how I want him to stand, and also show him the exact angle that I want his face. So I've given him an eye line, and now it's just a matter of tweaking the light and making sure it's in exactly the right position. And I actually like to get in and make sure that I've eyeballed where the flash is, so I can see and make sure that it is getting in the right spot on the face, because if you miss slightly, it's going to it's either going to hit them on the chest or over the top of the head. So that's really crucial that you line the lighting up. So here's my doggy guard of honor that they stayed by and protected me for the whole shoot. And then it's just a matter of working through getting full length, and I also wanted to create some 3/4 shots. One of the biggest issues with shooting long like this is it's difficult for the model to hear any directions, and particularly because I've got the ocean behind him, so it really was an issue. So it comes down to using hand gestures, and I really like to use my hands or freehand a lot to show the model the eye line that I want them. So it's like I was asking him to follow my hand, and that was his eye line. And then if I wanted his face to move around more, I would find something behind me that he could look at, and I would gesture for him to look at something else, so that I could change the eye line, which when I'm shooting something like this, where it's crucial that I'm not moving too much, because every time I break from the position that I'm in, it means that I'll have to start again and shoot the clean plate. That's why it's obviously ideal to be on a tripod for shoots like this, where you've got the light very close to your model. But if you can stay in position, get your light set up, adjust your light from where you are, and then use hand gestures as much as possible to direct the model. The great thing about working with light is you don't necessarily have to use artificial light, even in a situation like this that's so heavily backlit. One thing that I love to do in this kind of light is to shoot available, so no flash. So I'm exposing for the skin tone here. So basically what I've done is I've got the assistant out of the shot, and I just wanted to use the last few moments of the shoot to capture something with just available light. So basically what I've got is the exposure that I was shooting with fill flash was 1/200th of a second, f11, ISO 100. Now that gives me detail in the background. He is obviously backlit, so his skin tone is too dark. But if I expose for the skin tone and not the background, I can flip it around. So what I've done is I have dropped my aperture to f4 from f11, and I'm now shooting at 1/125th of a second, still on ISO 100. And what happens is the exposure in the background is gone. I've lost it. It's a few stops over, but his skin tone looks quite beautiful. And what you get is this beautiful wrap light coming in from the side of his face. And because I have shot this in RAW, you would be amazed how much detail in the background I can actually recover, and I can shoot a pretty nice image just by exposing for the skin tone rather than the background and not using flash. The other advantage is I'm able to shoot with a lovely shallow depth of field, so it's made my background nice and dreamy, and it's a completely different look.